Hey everyone, welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I am so happy you're here with me today. Because today, we are doing something a little different. Something a lot of you have been asking for in the comments. We are doing a full B1 English listening challenge right here, together, in this episode. So if you've ever sat there watching a movie, or listening to a podcast and thought to yourself, wait, did I just understand that? Or did I just guess? Today is the day we find out for real. I want you to imagine you're sitting across from me in a cozy little studio, coffee in hand, and I'm going to play out a series of everyday conversations for you. Conversations that real people have every single day, at coffee shops, at hotels, on the street, at work, at the doctor's office, and during casual weekend chats with friends. Your job, and I mean this, is to actually listen, not to read along and cheat. Just close your eyes if you want. Let the words wash over you, and see how much you can catch. Then, right after each conversation, I'm going to slow everything down with you. We're going to break apart every phrase, every little piece of vocabulary, every idiom that native speakers throw around like it's nothing. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, conversations that used to sound like a blur of fast mumbling are going to start sounding like, well, like actual sentences with actual meaning. I also want to say, right at the start here, that this episode was built specifically with you, the English in Fluency community, in mind. So many of you have messaged me saying that grammar and vocabulary feel manageable. You can study a rule, memorize a word list, practice with flashcards, but listening feels like it exists in a completely different category. Almost unpredictable, almost impossible to prepare for in the same structured way. I completely understand that feeling, and honestly, I think it's one of the most common frustrations among intermediate learners anywhere in the world, regardless of their first language. That's exactly why I wanted to build this challenge, not as some abstract listening exercise disconnected from real life, but as 9 genuinely realistic situations you might actually find yourself in, whether you're traveling, working, studying, or simply building friendships in English. Now, before we jump in, let's talk for just a minute about what B1 level actually means, because I know some of you are wondering if this challenge is right for you. B1 is what we call an intermediate level. It's the level where you can understand the main points of clear conversations about familiar topics, work, school, hobbies, travel, that kind of thing. You can deal with most situations that come up while traveling in an English-speaking country. You can describe experiences, dreams, hopes, and ambitions. And you can give short reasons and explanations for your opinions and plans. But here's the thing. Even at B1, listening is usually the hardest skill. Reading, you can go at your own pace. You can pause. You can look up a word. But listening happens in real time. People speak fast. They connect words together. They drop sounds. They use slang. And if your brain isn't trained for that yet, it can feel like everyone around you is speaking in a completely different language, even though technically it's English. So that's exactly what we're fixing today. Are you ready? Let's really dive in. Let's start with something super common, something almost everyone experiences at some point: ordering a coffee. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning. A woman named Sarah walks into a small coffee shop downtown. There's a barista behind the counter named Jake, and this is their conversation. Listen carefully, and afterward, we'll go through it piece by piece. Jake says, "Hey there, what can I get started for you today?" Sarah says, "Hi, can I get a medium latte, please?" Jake says, "Sure thing." "Do you want that hot or iced?" Sarah says, "Hot, please." "Oh, and can you make it oat milk instead of regular milk?" Jake says, "Absolutely. We've got oat milk. That'll be $4.75. Will that be all for you?" Sarah says, "Actually, yeah." "Can I also grab a blueberry muffin?" Jake says, "Of course." That brings your total to $7.50. "For here or to go?" Sarah says, "To go, thanks. I'm kind of in a rush this morning." Jake says, "No worries. It'll be ready in just a couple minutes." "Can I get a name for the order?" Sarah says, "It's Sarah." Jake says, "Perfect. We'll call you when it's ready, Sarah. Have a great day." Sarah says, "Thanks, you too." "Okay. How did that feel? If you caught most of it, that's amazing. Give yourself credit for that. And if you only caught bits and pieces, that's completely normal too, because real conversation moves fast, and native speakers blend words together in ways textbooks just don't prepare you for. Let's slow it all the way down now. The very first thing Jake says is, "What can I get started for you today?" Now, this is a phrase you're going to hear at almost every coffee shop, restaurant, or fast food place in America. It simply means, "What would you like to order?" It's a warm, welcoming way to ask, and it sounds a lot more natural than just saying, "What do you want?" Repeat, "What can I get started for you today?" Next, Sarah says, "Can I get a medium latte, please?" This is one of the most useful phrases in the entire English language for ordering anything. Can I get? You can plug in literally any item after this phrase. Can I get a coffee? Can I get a table for two? Can I get the check? It works everywhere. Repeat. Can I get a medium latte, please? Then Jake asks, "Do you want that hot or iced?" Notice how short and quick this is. In real speech, people don't always use full grammatical sentences. They trust that the context makes it clear. A longer, more formal version might be, "Would you like your coffee to be served hot or iced?" But nobody actually talks like that in daily life. Short and direct is the natural way. Repeat. Do you want that hot or iced? After that, Sarah says something really important. She says, "Can you make it oat milk instead of regular milk?" The phrase "instead of" is huge for B1 learners. It means in place of, you're replacing one thing with another. You'll use this constantly. Whether you're changing a coffee order, changing a plan, or explaining a decision like, "I went for a walk instead of going to the gym." Repeat, "instead of." Then Jake says, "That'll be $4.75. Will that be all for you?" In spoken English, $4.75 almost always gets shortened to $4.75. Americans drop the word dollars in casual speech because the context already makes it obvious you're talking about money. And, "will that be all?" is basically asking, "Do you want anything else?" It's polite, quick, and you'll hear it constantly at checkout counters. Repeat. "Will that be all for you?" Sarah then says, "Can I also grab a blueberry muffin?" Here, grab is being used casually to mean get or buy. In formal English, you might say, "May I also purchase a blueberry muffin?" But nobody talks like that at a coffee counter. Grab is friendly, relaxed, everyday language. Repeat. "Can I also grab a blueberry muffin?" Jake responds. For here or to go. This is one of the most iconic phrases in American food culture. For here means you're going to sit and eat inside the restaurant, and to go means you're taking your food with you. Repeat. For here or to go. Sarah answers, to go. Thanks. I'm kind of in a rush this morning. The phrase in a rush means you're hurrying. You don't have much time. You could also say, I'm in a hurry, and it means basically the same thing. Repeat. I'm kind of in a rush this morning. And finally, Jake wraps it up with, we'll call you when it's ready. This is such a common structure. We'll call you when, plus whatever condition needs to happen first. We'll call you when the table is ready. We'll call you when we know more. We'll call you when it arrives. Repeat. We'll call you when it's ready. See how much was actually packed into that short little coffee shop exchange? That's the beauty, and honestly the challenge, of real English. So much meaning gets communicated in such casual, quick little phrases. And once your ear starts recognizing these patterns, entire conversations start opening up for you like a door swinging wide open. All right, let's move on to our second conversation. And this one takes us somewhere a lot of you have probably experienced if you've ever traveled: a hotel front desk. Picture this scene now. A man named David walks up to the front desk of a hotel after a long flight. The receptionist's name is Emily. Here's how their conversation goes. Emily says, "Good evening. Welcome to the Grand View Hotel. How can I help you?" David says, "Hi. I have a reservation under the name David Chen." Emily says, "Let me pull that up for you. One moment, please. Okay, I see it here. A king room for 3 nights. Is that correct?" David says, "Yes, that's right." Emily says, "Great. Can I see your ID and a credit card, please?" David says, "Sure, here you go." Emily says, "Thank you. I'll just need you to sign this form here. It just confirms the dates and the rate for your stay." David says, "No problem. By the way, does the hotel have a gym?" Emily says, "Yes, it's on the 2nd floor. It's open 24 hours. David says, "Perfect." "And what time is checkout?" Emily says, "Checkout is at 11 a.m. But if you need a bit more time, just give us a call in the morning and we'll see what we can do." David says, "That's really helpful. Thank you." Emily says, "Of course. You're in room 412. The elevators are just around the corner. Enjoy your stay." David says, "Thanks so much. Have a good night." All right, let's break this one down too, because there's a lot of useful, real-world vocabulary packed in there. Emily starts with, "Welcome to the Grand View Hotel. How can I help you?" This greeting structure, "welcome to" plus the name of the business, is used everywhere in customer service, whether it's a hotel, a store, or a restaurant. Repeat, "Welcome to the Grand View Hotel." David responds, "I have a reservation under the name David Chen." The phrase under the name is really important, and it shows up constantly, whether you're checking into a hotel, picking up a package, or making a restaurant reservation. It simply means the booking was made using this specific name. Repeat, under the name David Chen. Emily then says, "Let me pull that up for you." To pull something up, in this context, means to find information on a computer screen, usually by searching or clicking. You'll hear this phrase in offices, at banks, at doctors' offices, basically anywhere someone is looking something up digitally. Repeat, "Let me pull that up for you." Next, she confirms, "A king room for 3 nights. Is that correct?" Notice the little tag question at the end. Is that correct? This is a really natural way to confirm information without sounding robotic. You could also say, "Does that sound right?" or "Is that accurate?" Repeat. "Is that correct?" David simply answers, "That's right," which is a quick, casual way of confirming something is true, similar to saying "yes," "exactly," or "correct." Repeat. "That's right." Emily then asks, "Can I see your ID and a credit card, please?" This is one of those must-know travel phrases. ID, short for identification, usually means a passport or a driver's license. Repeat. "Can I see your ID, please?" David hands it over and says, "Sure, here you go." Here you go is used constantly in daily English whenever you're handing someone something, whether it's money, a document, or an item at a store. Repeat. Here you go. David then asks, "Does the hotel have a gym?" This is a super simple, super useful question pattern. Does plus the place, plus have plus the thing you're looking for? Does the hotel have a pool? Does the restaurant have vegetarian options? Does the store have parking? Repeat. Does the hotel have a gym? Emily answers, "It's open 24 hours, meaning it never closes. It's available at any time, day or night." This phrase, "open 24 hours," or sometimes just said as "open 24/7, is extremely common in daily conversation. Repeat, open 24 hours. David then asks, "What time is checkout?" Checkout, as one word, refers to the process and the specific time when you have to leave your hotel room. Its opposite is check-in, which is when you arrive and get your room key. Repeat. "What time is checkout?" Emily explains, "Checkout is at 11 a.m., but if you need a bit more time, just give us a call in the morning." The phrase "a bit more" means a small additional amount, and "give us a call" is a friendly, casual way of saying, "Please telephone us." Repeat, "Give us a call." And finally, Emily finishes with "Enjoy your stay," which is the standard, friendly way hotel staff say goodbye to guests, wishing them a pleasant time during their visit. Repeat, "Enjoy your stay." Isn't it incredible how much real, functional English is hiding inside such a short, ordinary conversation? This is exactly the kind of exchange you'd need if you were traveling anywhere in the English-speaking world. And now you've got the actual phrases, not just textbook versions, but the real, natural way people actually talk. Now let's move on to conversation number 3. And this one is something almost everyone needs at some point, whether you're a tourist or you just moved to a new city. Asking for directions. Picture this. A woman named Maria stops a man named Tom on the street because she's a little lost. Here's what happens. Maria says, "Excuse me, sorry to bother you. Do you know how to get to the train station from here?" Tom says, "Oh, sure, no problem. It's actually not too far. You're going to want to go straight down this street for about 2 blocks. Maria says, "Okay, straight for 2 blocks. Tom says, "Right. And then you'll see a big intersection with a pharmacy on the corner. Take a left there." Maria says, "Take a left at the pharmacy." "Got it." Tom says, "Exactly. Then just keep walking for another 5 minutes or so, and the station will be right in front of you. You honestly can't miss it." Maria says, "That's so helpful. Thank you so much. Is it within walking distance, or should I take a bus?" Tom says, "Honestly, walking is faster. It'll probably take you about 10 minutes total." Maria says, "Perfect. I really appreciate it." Tom says, "No problem at all. Have a safe trip." Let's slow this one down and pull out all the useful vocabulary. Maria opens with, "Excuse me, sorry to bother you." This is the classic, polite way to interrupt a stranger in English. Whether you're asking for directions, asking a question in a store, or getting someone's attention in any public setting. Repeat. Excuse me. Sorry to bother you. She continues. Do you know how to get to the train station from here? This phrase, how to get to, plus a place, is probably the single most useful phrase for asking directions in all of English. How do I get to the airport? How do I get to the nearest pharmacy? How do I get to your office? Repeat. How do I get to the train station? Tom responds, it's actually not too far. The word actually is used constantly in spoken English to add emphasis or slight surprise, and not too far simply means the distance is short, it's close by. Repeat. It's not too far. He continues, you're going to want to go straight down this street for about 2 blocks. In American English, distances in cities are often measured in blocks, meaning the sections of street between intersections. And the phrase, you're going to want to, is a friendly, indirect way of giving instructions, softer than simply commanding, go straight. Repeat, go straight for about 2 blocks. Tom then says, take a left there, and later, take a left at the pharmacy. Take a left and take a right are the standard, everyday phrases for giving turn-by-turn directions, far more common in casual speech than the more formal, turn left or turn right. Repeat, take a left. He adds, the station will be right in front of you. You honestly can't miss it. This phrase, you can't miss it, is something native speakers say all the time when giving directions, meaning the place is obvious, easy to spot, impossible to walk past without noticing. Repeat. You can't miss it. Maria then asks, is it within walking distance or should I take a bus? Within walking distance is a fantastic phrase meaning close enough to walk to, and it's incredibly useful when you're trying to figure out how to get somewhere in an unfamiliar place. Repeat. Is it within walking distance? Tom answers, honestly, walking is faster. Once again, we see the word honestly used casually, this time to add a sense of genuine opinion, similar to saying, to be honest, or truthfully. Repeat. Honestly, walking is faster. And Maria finishes with, I really appreciate it, which is a warm, sincere way of saying thank you, slightly more heartfelt than a simple thanks, and perfect for situations where someone has genuinely helped you out. Repeat. I really appreciate it. Notice how, across all 3 of these conversations so far, certain patterns keep repeating. Short, casual phrases replacing longer, more formal ones. Contractions everywhere, like that'll, will, and your instead of the full versions, and softening words like honestly, actually, and kind of, sprinkled throughout to make speech feel more natural and less robotic. These patterns are basically the secret code of real spoken English, and once you can hear them, you'll start noticing them absolutely everywhere. Let's keep going. Conversation number 4 takes us into a slightly more professional setting. Small talk before a job interview. Picture this. A woman named Priya is sitting in a waiting room, and an interviewer named Mr. Collins comes out to greet her. Mr. Collins says, Priya? Priya says, yes, that's me. Mr. Collins says, hi, I'm Mr. Collins. It's great to finally meet you in person. How was your trip getting here? Priya says, it was good, thank you. Traffic wasn't too bad, so I actually got here a bit early. Mr. Collins says, that's great to hear. Can I get you some water or coffee before we start? Priya says, water would be great, thank you. Mr. Collins says, sure thing. So, are you familiar with our building? Did you have any trouble finding parking? Priya says, no, not at all. Your directions were really clear, and there was plenty of parking in the front lot. Mr. Collins says, perfect. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Why don't we head to the conference room and get started? Priya says, sounds good to me. Let's break down this workplace small talk, because it's a totally different flavor of English than ordering coffee or asking for directions. Mr. Collins says, it's great to finally meet you in person. The word finally here suggests some kind of wait or anticipation. Maybe they had emails or phone calls before, and now they're meeting face-to-face for the first time. In person is a key phrase, meaning physically together, as opposed to talking on the phone or through a screen. Repeat. It's great to finally meet you in person. He then asks, how was your trip getting here? This is a classic small talk question used to be polite and to ease into a conversation before getting to business. You'll hear variations of this constantly. How was your flight? How was the drive? How was your weekend? Repeat. How was your trip getting here? Priya answers, traffic wasn't too bad, so I actually got here a bit early. The phrase wasn't too bad is a very British and American way of saying something was fine, acceptable, not a problem, even though it uses a negative structure. And a bit early simply means slightly ahead of the scheduled time. Repeat. Traffic wasn't too bad. Mr. Collins responds, that's great to hear. A warm, encouraging phrase used whenever someone shares good news, no matter how small. Repeat. That's great to hear. He then offers, can I get you some water or coffee before we start? This exact phrase, can I get you, is used constantly in hospitality and professional settings when offering something to a guest, whether it's a drink, a snack, or even a seat. Repeat. Can I get you some water? He continues with small talk, asking, did you have any trouble finding parking? The phrase have trouble plus a verb in the ing form is incredibly useful, and it means to experience difficulty doing something. Did you have trouble finding the office? Did you have trouble understanding the instructions? Did you have trouble sleeping last night? Repeat. Did you have any trouble finding parking? Priya answers, no, not at all. This is a strong, friendly way of saying absolutely not, definitely not, used to reassure someone that something wasn't a problem at all. Repeat. No, not at all. And Mr. Collins wraps up the small talk with, why don't we head to the conference room and get started? Why don't we is a wonderfully soft, friendly way of making a suggestion, much gentler than simply commanding, let's go, or come with me. And to head somewhere simply means to go in that direction. Repeat. Why don't we head to the conference room? This kind of professional small talk might feel intimidating at first, but honestly, once you recognize the pattern, it's really just a warm, structured way of easing into a more serious conversation, and you'll start hearing these exact same phrases in job interviews, business meetings, and even casual introductions at networking events, no matter what industry or country you happen to find yourself working in. Now let's shift gears completely and head into conversation number 5, which takes place somewhere a little more personal, and honestly, somewhere with its own very specific vocabulary. A doctor's office. Picture this. A patient named Robert is talking with his doctor, Dr. Patel, during a checkup. Dr. Patel says, "Good morning, Robert. How have you been feeling lately?" Robert says, "Honestly, not great. I've had this cough for about a week now, and it just won't go away. Dr. Patel says, I'm sorry to hear that. Is it a dry cough, or are you bringing anything up? Robert says, it's mostly dry, but I've also had a sore throat and a bit of a headache. Dr. Patel says, okay, any fever? Robert says, I checked yesterday, and it was around 99.5, so just slightly elevated. Dr. Patel says, all right. Let's take a listen to your lungs, if that's okay. Take a deep breath in for me. Robert breathes in. Dr. Patel says, good. And again. Okay, your lungs sound clear, which is a good sign. It's probably just a common cold or a mild virus, but I'd like you to rest, drink plenty of fluids, and if it doesn't clear up in another week, come back and we'll run some more tests. Robert says, that's a relief. Should I take anything for it? Dr. Patel says, over-the-counter cold medicine should be fine, and definitely get some rest. Your body needs the energy to fight this off. Robert says, will do. Thank you so much, doctor. All right. Doctor's office vocabulary is honestly some of the most important, practical English you can learn, especially if you're living or traveling abroad, so let's go through this one carefully. Dr. Patel asks, how have you been feeling lately? This is the standard opening question at almost every medical appointment, and the word lately means recently, over the past few days or weeks. Repeat. How have you been feeling lately? Robert answers, I've had this cough for about a week now, and it just won't go away. The phrase won't go away is incredibly useful for describing any ongoing symptom, or, honestly, any persistent problem in general, whether it's a headache, a cold, or even a stubborn stain on your shirt. Repeat. It just won't go away. Dr. Patel then asks, is it a dry cough, or are you bringing anything up? This might sound a little unusual, but bringing something up, in a medical context, refers to coughing up mucus. So a dry cough means nothing comes up, while a wet cough means it does. This is genuinely useful vocabulary to know before you ever need it. Repeat. Is it a dry cough? Robert mentions, I've also had a sore throat and a bit of a headache. Sore throat is an extremely common phrase, meaning your throat hurts, especially when you swallow, and it's essential vocabulary for describing common cold symptoms. Repeat. I have a sore throat. Dr. Patel asks, any fever? This short, direct question format is common in medical settings, where doctors often skip full sentences to move quickly through a checklist of questions. Robert answers, it was around 99.5, so just slightly elevated. The word elevated here simply means higher than normal, and it's frequently used to describe blood pressure, temperature, or other measurements. Repeat. It's just slightly elevated. Dr. Patel then says, let's take a listen to your lungs. To take a listen is a soft, friendly way of saying, I'm going to listen, often used by doctors to make an examination feel less clinical and more conversational. Repeat. Let's take a listen to your lungs. After the examination, Dr. Patel reassures him, your lungs sound clear, which is a good sign. The phrase, a good sign, means a positive indicator, evidence that something is likely to turn out well. Repeat. That's a good sign. Dr. Patel continues, drink plenty of fluids. In medical and health advice generally, fluids simply means liquids, especially water, and plenty of means a generous, sufficient amount. Repeat. Drink plenty of fluids. He adds, if it doesn't clear up in another week, come back. To clear up, when talking about an illness or symptom, means to go away completely, to heal, to resolve on its own. Repeat. if it doesn't clear up. Robert responds, "That's a relief," a phrase used when you feel reassured after being worried about something, similar to saying, "I'm relieved," or "That makes me feel better." Repeat, "That's a relief." And finally, Robert says, "Will do," which is a short, casual way of confirming that you'll follow someone's advice or instructions, similar to saying, "I will," or "Okay, I'll do that." Repeat, "Will do." Doctor's office English can feel intimidating, especially because it mixes everyday casual phrases with more specific health vocabulary. But as you just heard, the actual structure of the conversation is very predictable. Questions about symptoms, a short examination, and then advice. And once you know that pattern, you can prepare yourself for almost any doctor's visit in English. All right, let's move into our sixth and final conversation for today. And this one is probably the most relaxed of them all. Two friends, Jenny and Marcus, catching up about their weekend plans. Jenny says, "Hey, what are you up to this weekend?" Marcus says, "Honestly, not much. I might just chill at home and catch up on some shows." "What about you?" Jenny says, "Oh, I'm actually heading out of town. My sister and I are driving up to the lake for a couple days." Marcus says, "Nice, that sounds relaxing. Are you guys staying at a hotel or camping?" Jenny says, "We're renting a little cabin, actually. It's right on the water, so we're planning to do some kayaking and just hang out by the fire at night." Marcus says, "That sounds amazing. I'm honestly a little jealous." Jenny says, "Ha, you should come next time. We're thinking about doing it again in the fall." Marcus says, "I'd be down for that. Just let me know the dates, and I'll try to make it work." Jenny says, "Will do. Anyway, I should get going. I still need to pack." Marcus says, "All right, have a great trip. Text me some pictures." Jenny says, "I definitely will. Talk to you soon." This conversation is so relaxed, so casual, and honestly, this is exactly the kind of English that a lot of textbooks completely skip over. So let's take our time with it. Jenny opens with, "What are you up to this weekend?" This is probably the single most common casual question friends ask each other in English, and it simply means, "What are your plans? What are you doing?" Repeat, "What are you up to this weekend?" Marcus answers, "I might just chill at home and catch up on some shows." To chill, as a verb, is very casual slang meaning to relax, to do nothing particularly productive, just enjoying downtime. And catch up on, in this context, means to do something you've fallen behind on, like watching episodes of a show you missed. Repeat, "I might just chill at home." Jenny responds, "I'm actually heading out of town." To head out of town simply means to leave the city or area you live in, usually for a short trip. Repeat, "I'm heading out of town." Marcus asks, "Are you guys staying at a hotel or camping?" Notice the word guys here, used casually to mean people, in this case referring to Jenny and her sister together, regardless of gender. This is extremely common in casual American English. Repeat, "Are you guys staying at a hotel?" Jenny explains, "We're renting a little cabin, actually. It's right on the water." The phrase "right on the water" is a lovely, natural way to describe a location that's directly next to a lake, river, or ocean. Repeat, "It's right on the water." She continues, "We're planning to do some kayaking and just hang out by the fire at night." To hang out is one of the most useful casual verbs in English, meaning to spend relaxed, unstructured time somewhere or with someone. And honestly, this single phrasal verb might be one of the single most repeated pieces of vocabulary among close friends speaking casual English anywhere in the world. Repeat. We're just going to hang out by the fire. Marcus responds, I'm honestly a little jealous, meaning he wishes he could do the same thing. He wants what Jenny has planned. This is a very natural, friendly way to express envy without sounding negative. Repeat. I'm a little jealous. Jenny laughs and says, You should come next time. This phrase, you should come, is a warm, casual way of extending an invitation for a future occasion, without making firm, specific plans yet. Repeat. You should come next time. Marcus responds, I'd be down for that. To be down for something is casual slang, meaning you're willing, interested, or up for doing something. It's extremely common among younger English speakers and close friends. Repeat. I'd be down for that. Jenny says, I should get going. A common, polite way of announcing that you need to leave or end the conversation, similar to saying, I need to head out, or I've got to run. Repeat, I should get going. And Marcus finishes with, text me some pictures, a simple, friendly request that shows genuine interest in someone's plans. And it's honestly a lovely example of how casual, caring language works between close friends. Repeat, text me some pictures. Let's keep the momentum going, because I promised you real-world English. And honestly, 3 of the most common situations people ask me about are still waiting for us. Eating out at a restaurant, calling customer service on the phone, and dealing with a delay at the airport. So, let's tackle all 3 before we move into strategy. Conversation number 7 takes us to a restaurant on a Friday night. Picture this. A small group of friends, Anna, Ben, and their server, whose name tag says Chris, are sitting down for dinner. Chris says, Hi everyone, welcome in. Can I start you off with something to drink? Anna says, I'll have a glass of the house red, please. Ben says, and I'll just do a water for now, thanks. Chris says, Sure thing. Have you guys had a chance to look at the menu? Or do you need a few more minutes? Anna says, I think we're almost ready. What would you recommend? Chris says, Honestly, the salmon is a customer favorite. And if you're into something spicier, the chicken tikka is really popular too. Anna says, That settles it. I'll go with the salmon. Ben says, I'm actually torn between the burger and the pasta. What comes with the burger? Chris says, It comes with fries and a side salad. And you can sub the fries for a sweet potato mash if you'd like. Ben says, Oh, I'll definitely do that swap. I'll get the burger with the sweet potato mash then. Chris says, Perfect choice. I'll get that order in for you. Let me know if you need anything else in the meantime. Anna says, Actually, could we also get an order of the spinach dip to share? Chris says, Of course. I'll have that out to you shortly. Let's slow down and unpack this restaurant scene, because ordering food comes with its own very specific vocabulary that you'll use constantly if you ever eat out in an English-speaking country. Chris opens with, Can I start you off with something to drink? This exact phrase is basically the universal opening line at restaurants across America, and it simply means, Would you like to order a drink first? Repeat. Can I start you off with something to drink? Ben answers, I'll just do a water for now, thanks. Notice the phrase, I'll just do, which is a wonderfully casual way of ordering something, almost as common as, I'll have. And for now signals that this isn't his final decision, just what he wants at this moment. Repeat. I'll just do a water for now. Chris then asks, Have you guys had a chance to look at the menu? The phrase have a chance to means have you had the opportunity to, and it's a polite, gentle way of checking whether someone is ready, without pressuring them. Repeat. Have you had a chance to look at the menu? Anna asks, what would you recommend? This is one of the single most useful questions you can ask at any restaurant, and it invites the server to share their honest opinion, which is often incredibly helpful when a menu feels overwhelming. Repeat. What would you recommend? Chris answers, the salmon is a customer favorite. This phrase, customer favorite, is a common piece of marketing and service language, meaning many other customers order and enjoy this particular dish. Repeat. It's a customer favorite. Anna responds, that settles it, meaning that piece of information has helped her make a final decision, similar to saying, that decides it, or, okay, I've made up my mind. Repeat. That settles it. Ben says, I'm actually torn between the burger and the pasta. To be torn between two things means you're having a hard time deciding. You're genuinely stuck weighing two good options against each other. Repeat. I'm torn between the burger and the pasta. He then asks, what comes with the burger? This phrase, what comes with, is essential restaurant vocabulary, and it's asking what side dishes or extras are automatically included with a particular menu item. Repeat. What comes with the burger? Chris explains he can sub the fries for a sweet potato mash. To sub something, short for substitute, means to swap one item for another, and this is incredibly common vocabulary anytime you're customizing a food order. Repeat. Can I sub the fries for something else? Ben responds, I'll definitely do that swap. Here, swap is being used as a noun, referring to the substitution itself, and it's just as common as the verb form we just heard. Repeat. I'll do that swap. And finally, Anna adds, could we also get an order of the spinach dip to share? The phrase to share indicates the dish is meant for the whole table, not for one individual person. And it's a really important word to know if you're dining with a group and want to order appetizers together. Repeat. Could we get that to share? Restaurant English really is its own little world, full of specific vocabulary around ordering, customizing, and sharing food. And honestly, once you're comfortable with phrases like these, dining out anywhere in the English-speaking world becomes so much less stressful. Now, let's move to conversation number 8. And this one takes us somewhere that honestly makes a lot of people nervous. Even native speakers. A customer service phone call. Picture this. A woman named Lisa is calling her internet provider because her service has been down all day, and she's speaking with a representative named Kevin. Kevin says, "Thank you for calling Tech Connect support. This is Kevin. How can I help you today?" Lisa says, "Hi, Kevin. So my internet has been out since this morning, and I've already tried restarting the router twice." Kevin says, "I'm really sorry to hear that. Let me pull up your account so I can take a closer look. Can I get your account number or the phone number on file?" Lisa says, "Sure, it's 555-231-4478. Kevin says, "Got it, thank you." "Okay, I'm seeing an outage reported in your area, so this looks like it's on our end, not something wrong with your equipment." Lisa says, "Oh, okay, that's actually a relief. Do you have any idea when it'll be fixed?" Kevin says, "Our technicians are already working on it, and based on the current estimate, service should be restored within the next 2 to 3 hours. Lisa says, "All right, that's not too bad." Is there anything I need to do on my end in the meantime? Kevin says, nope, nothing at all. It should come back automatically once the outage is resolved. But if it's still down after 4 hours, feel free to give us a call back. Lisa says, will do. Thanks for checking on that for me. Kevin says, of course, and again, I really apologize for the inconvenience. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Lisa says, no, that's everything. Thank you so much for your help. Kevin says, you're very welcome. Have a great rest of your day. This kind of call can feel intimidating, especially because you often can't see the other person's face or body language, so let's really slow down and go through it carefully. Kevin opens with, thank you for calling Tech Connect Support. This is Kevin. This exact structure, thank you for calling, plus the company name, this is plus the representative's name, is the standard opening for basically every customer service call in English-speaking countries. Repeat. Thank you for calling. This is Kevin. Lisa explains, my internet has been out since this morning. When talking about a service like internet, electricity, or water, the phrase to be out simply means it isn't working. It has stopped functioning. Repeat. My internet has been out. Kevin says, let me pull up your account, echoing that same phrase we heard earlier at the hotel, meaning he's going to find her information on a computer screen. Repeat. Let me pull up your account. He asks, can I get your account number or the phone number on file? The phrase on file is really useful. It means information that's already been stored or recorded in a system, like the phone number they have saved from a previous interaction. Repeat, the phone number on file. Kevin explains, this looks like it's on our end, not something wrong with your equipment. This phrase, on our end, means the problem originates from their company's side, their system, rather than from the customer's own devices. Repeat, it's on our end. Lisa responds, that's actually a relief, again using that phrase from our doctor's office conversation, showing just how commonly it's used across completely different situations. Repeat, that's a relief. Kevin explains, service should be restored within the next 2 to 3 hours. The word restored, in this context, means brought back, fixed, returned to normal working condition, and it's frequently used when talking about outages of any kind, whether it's internet, power, or water. Repeat. Service should be restored soon. Lisa asks, is there anything I need to do on my end? Notice how on my end mirrors the phrase Kevin used earlier, on our end, just flipped to refer to Lisa's side of things instead. This mirrored phrase structure is extremely common in English conversations. Repeat. Is there anything I need to do on my end? Kevin reassures her, nope, nothing at all, using nope as a very casual, friendly version of no, appropriate here because the tone of the call has become relaxed and comfortable. Repeat. Nope, nothing at all. He adds, feel free to give us a call back. Feel free to is a warm, welcoming phrase used to grant permission, letting someone know they're completely welcome to do something without hesitation. Repeat. Feel free to call us back. Kevin apologizes, I really apologize for the inconvenience, a formal, polite phrase specifically used in customer service and professional settings when something has gone wrong and caused difficulty for the customer. Repeat. I apologize for the inconvenience. And finally, Kevin closes with, is there anything else I can help you with today? This closing question is basically universal across customer service calls in English, giving the customer one last chance to raise additional issues before the call ends. Repeat. Is there anything else I can help you with? Phone calls really do test your listening skills in a unique way, because you're relying entirely on tone of voice and word choice, without any facial expressions or body language to help you. And that's exactly why practicing conversations like this one is so valuable. Now, for our ninth and final conversation of today's challenge, let's head to somewhere that combines stress, uncertainty, and a whole lot of very specific vocabulary. An airport during a flight delay. Picture this. A traveler named Omar approaches a gate agent named Michelle after noticing his flight information has changed on the screen. Omar says, "Hi, excuse me. I noticed my flight to Chicago got pushed back. Do you know what's going on?" Michelle says. "Let me check that for you real quick." "Yes, I'm seeing it here. There's a slight delay due to weather conditions along the flight path." Omar says, "Oh no. Do you have an estimate on how long the delay will be?" Michelle says, "Right now we're looking at about an hour and a half, but I'll be sure to update the board as soon as we know more." Omar says, "Okay, that's not too bad, I guess. Will I still make my connecting flight in Chicago?" Michelle says, "What time is your connection scheduled for?" Omar says, "It's at 4:15. Michelle says, "Okay, based on the new arrival time, it'll be tight, but you should still be able to make it, especially if you head straight to your next gate as soon as you land." Omar says, "Got it. I'll definitely hustle over there. Is there anywhere nearby I can grab some food while I wait?" Michelle says, "Yes, there's a food court just past security, right around gate 12. Omar says, "Perfect. Thank you so much for your help." Michelle says, "Of course. And again, I apologize for the delay. We'll have updates posted as soon as we have them." Let's break this final conversation apart, because airport vocabulary is honestly some of the most practical, high-stakes English you can learn. Omar opens with, "I noticed my flight to Chicago got pushed back." To get pushed back, when talking about a flight, train, or any scheduled event, means it's been delayed, moved to a later time. Repeat. My flight got pushed back. Michelle responds, "Let me check that for you real quick." The phrase "real quick," used here as an adverb, is extremely casual and common in American English, meaning she'll do something rapidly, without much delay. Repeat. Let me check that real quick. She explains, there's a slight delay due to weather conditions along the flight path. The phrase "due to" is a slightly more formal way of saying "because of," and it's commonly used in official announcements, whether at airports, on the news, or in written notices. Repeat. It's due to weather conditions. Omar asks, "Do you have an estimate on how long the delay will be?" The word estimate refers to an approximate guess or calculation, not an exact guaranteed number, and it's used constantly whenever exact information isn't yet available. Repeat. Do you have an estimate? Michelle answers, "Right now we're looking at about an hour and a half." This phrase we're looking at is a really natural way of giving an approximate figure or time frame, used commonly in both casual and professional conversations. Repeat. We're looking at about an hour. Omar asks, "Will I still make my connecting flight?" To make a flight means to arrive in time to successfully board it, and a connecting flight refers to a second flight you have to catch after your first one lands, usually during a layover. Repeat. Will I still make my connecting flight? Michelle responds. Based on the new arrival time, it'll be tight. The word tight, in this context, means there's very little extra time. It'll be a close call, a challenging but potentially possible timeline. Repeat. It'll be tight. Omar says, I'll definitely hustle over there. To hustle, used casually as a verb here, means to move quickly and with urgency, similar to saying he'll rush or hurry. Repeat. I'll hustle over there. He then asks, is there anywhere nearby I can grab some food while I wait? Notice grab appearing again, just like in our very first coffee shop conversation, reinforcing just how frequently this casual verb replaces the more formal get or buy. Repeat. Is there anywhere I can grab some food? Michelle answers, there's a food court just past security, right around gate 12. The phrase just past is a simple, useful way of giving directions relative to a specific, well-known landmark. In this case, the airport security checkpoint. Repeat. It's just past security. And finally, Michelle closes with, we'll have updates posted as soon as we have them, using the structure as soon as, which means immediately when something happens, without any unnecessary delay. Repeat, as soon as we have them. And there you have it, 9 full, real-world conversations covering coffee shops, hotels, city streets, job interviews, doctor's offices, casual friendships, restaurants, customer service calls, and airports, each one packed with genuinely useful, natural English that native speakers use constantly, whether they even realize it or not. Now that we've gone through all 9 conversations, I want to take a step back and talk about listening strategy in general, because understanding individual phrases is only part of the puzzle. The other part is training your brain to process spoken English in real time, without translating everything back into your first language, and without panicking the moment you miss a single word. The first strategy I want you to practice is called listening for gist, which means listening for the general idea of what's being said, rather than trying to understand every single word. If you get stuck trying to understand one confusing word, you'll miss the next 5 words, while your brain is still stuck on that first one. And honestly, that's how most listening comprehension falls apart. Instead, let unfamiliar words pass by. Keep listening and trust that the overall context will fill in the gaps for you. The second strategy is predicting what comes next based on context. In our coffee shop conversation, the moment you heard, for here or to go, your brain, if it's trained well, should already be predicting that the next thing coming is either an order confirmation or a total price. Predicting what's coming next, based on the situation, dramatically increases how much you understand, because you're not passively waiting for information, you're actively anticipating it. The third strategy, and this one is honestly underrated, is training your ear for connected speech. Native English speakers rarely pronounce every word separately and clearly, the way a textbook audio file does. Instead, words blend together. Want to becomes wanna. Going to becomes gonna. What are you becomes what'ya. This isn't lazy or incorrect English. This is simply how natural, fluent speech sounds, and the sooner you train your ear to recognize these blended sounds, the sooner real conversations will start to feel understandable instead of overwhelming. The fourth strategy is repetition with shadowing, which is exactly why I've been asking you to repeat phrases throughout this entire episode. Shadowing means listening to a phrase and then immediately repeating it out loud, trying to match the rhythm, the pace, and the intonation as closely as you can. This does two incredible things at once. It trains your listening comprehension because you have to actually process what you heard, and it trains your speaking and pronunciation because you're physically producing the sounds yourself. Repeat. Shadowing trains both your ear and your mouth at the same time. Before I share that final strategy with you, I want to mention one more tool that honestly transformed my own approach to teaching listening, and that's dictation practice. Dictation simply means listening to a short clip, sometimes just a single sentence, and writing down exactly what you hear, word for word, as precisely as you can. It sounds simple, maybe even a little old-fashioned, but it forces your brain to slow down and truly process every single sound, rather than skimming along and grabbing only the general idea. I'd recommend picking one short sentence from today's episode, maybe something like, "Will that be all for you?" or "I'm honestly a little jealous," and writing it out from memory after listening just once. Then, check yourself against the transcript and notice exactly which words or sounds you missed. Over time, this single exercise builds an incredibly precise, detailed ear for the small connecting words, the little grammar pieces that often get glossed over in casual listening but that carry a surprising amount of meaning. I also want to mention graded listening material because a lot of learners jump straight from textbook audio, which is slow and overly clear, directly into native-level content like movies or the evening news, and that jump is honestly enormous, almost like trying to run a marathon after only ever walking around the block. Graded listening material, content specifically created or adapted for learners at your level, whether that's simplified podcasts, learner-focused news programs, or even children's shows in English, gives your ear a stepping stone, something challenging enough to grow from, but not so overwhelming that you give up in frustration. Honestly, this episode itself is designed to sit right in that graded, B1 friendly sweet spot. Natural enough to prepare you for real conversations, but clear enough that you're not completely lost along the way. The fifth and final strategy I want to leave you with today is embracing productive confusion. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. You are going to encounter words, phrases, and expressions you don't understand, probably in every single conversation you have in English for a long time. That's not failure. That's actually the process working correctly. Every time you notice confusion, and then later figure out what that word or phrase meant, whether from context or by looking it up, that moment of confusion becomes a memory hook. And honestly, those are often the words and phrases you remember the longest, precisely because you struggled with them first. Before we get to today's final challenge, I want to spend a few minutes on something that I think honestly gets skipped over way too often in language learning content, and that's the specific traps, the specific patterns that trip up B1 learners again and again, even smart, dedicated learners who have been studying for years. The first trap is what I like to call the one bad word spiral. This happens when you hear one single word you don't recognize, and instead of letting it go and continuing to listen, your brain locks onto it, tries desperately to translate it, and while it's doing that, it completely misses the next several words of the conversation. Think back to our doctor's office conversation. If the word elevated confused you the first time you heard it, and your brain got stuck trying to figure out what it meant, you might have completely missed that Dr. Patel then said, Let's take a listen to your lungs, which was actually a really important, useful phrase. The fix here is simple to describe, though it does take practice, and that's training yourself to consciously let go of confusion in the moment, almost like watching a leaf float past you in a river. You notice it, you don't grab onto it, you let it keep moving, and you stay focused on the current of the conversation. The second trap is assuming formal English, and casual English are basically the same thing. So many textbooks teach a very formal, very neutral version of English, full of complete sentences and standard grammar, and then learners get out into the real world and hear things like, "Whata ya?" or "Gonna," or "I'd be down for that," and they panic, thinking they've somehow forgotten everything they studied. But the truth is, casual spoken English genuinely is a different register, almost like a different dialect, with its own contractions, its own slang, and its own rhythm, and the sooner you accept that as its own legitimate, valuable thing to learn, rather than some kind of incorrect or broken version of proper English, the sooner you'll actually start understanding real conversations. The third trap is over-relying on subtitles or transcripts. Now, I want to be really clear here. Reading along while you listen isn't inherently bad. In fact, it can be a great tool, especially early on. But if you always, every single time, read along with text while you listen, your brain starts to rely on your eyes to do the heavy lifting, and your ears never fully develop the skill of processing sound alone. That's exactly why, at the beginning of this episode, I specifically asked you to close your eyes, or at least not read along, while you listen to each conversation for the first time. Give your ears the chance to struggle a little, because that struggle, uncomfortable as it feels, is precisely what builds real listening strength over time. The fourth trap is underestimating the importance of tone and emotion in spoken English. Words on a page carry meaning, sure, but spoken words carry so much more: sarcasm, excitement, hesitation, genuine concern, and if you're only ever focused on the literal dictionary meaning of words, you will miss enormous amounts of what's actually being communicated. Think about Marcus saying, "I'm honestly a little jealous," back in our friend's conversation. If that line were said with a flat, bored tone, it might actually sound rude or dismissive, but said with warmth and a little laugh in the voice, exactly how Marcus said it, it becomes a genuine, friendly compliment about Jenny's exciting weekend plans. Learning to listen for tone, not just words, is honestly one of the more advanced skills you can develop. But even at B1 level, starting to pay attention to it will dramatically improve how much you actually understand and connect with in real conversations. The fifth and final trap I want to mention is expecting perfect understanding on the very first listen. I see this constantly with learners. They listen to something once, they don't catch everything, and they immediately conclude that the material is too difficult for them, or worse, that something is wrong with their English ability. But here's the truth: even native speakers often need context, repetition, or clarification to fully understand fast, casual, or unfamiliar speech, especially in noisy environments or unfamiliar accents. Multiple listens aren't a sign of weakness. They're simply part of the natural process of building comprehension, which is exactly why I built repetition into every single phrase we covered today, and exactly why I'm encouraging you to come back and listen to this entire episode again once you finish it. Now, Let's talk for just a moment about accents, because this is something so many of you have asked me about directly. Everything you heard today was in a fairly neutral American accent, but the English-speaking world is enormous and incredibly diverse when it comes to how people actually sound. British English, Australian English, Irish English, South African English, Indian English, and countless regional American accents from the Deep South to New York City. All of these carry their own particular sounds, their own particular rhythms, and honestly, their own particular vocabulary choices too. My honest advice here is this: don't try to master every single accent at once. That's simply not realistic, and it's not even necessary. Instead, pick one or two accents that are most relevant to your own life, maybe because of where you're planning to travel, where you work, or simply which accent you personally find most pleasant to listen to, and focus your deepest, most consistent practice there first. Once your ear is truly comfortable with one accent, adapting to other accents becomes significantly easier, because you already have a strong foundation of general listening skills to build from. All right, with all of that said, let's get into that final mini challenge I promised you, a way to actually practice everything we just covered. I want you to think back through all 9 conversations we listened to today: the coffee shop, the hotel, the street directions, the job interview, the doctor's office, the weekend chat between friends, the restaurant dinner, the customer service call, and the airport delay. And I want you to pick just one conversation, the one that felt the most difficult for you personally. Maybe it was the doctor's office because of the specific vocabulary, or maybe it was the friends chatting casually because of how fast and relaxed the language was, or maybe it was the airport with all of its urgency and travel-specific words. Once you've chosen your conversation, I want you to try something a little more advanced, something I call the shadow and switch technique. First, play the conversation and shadow it exactly as you heard it, matching the pace and the rhythm as closely as you can. Then, the second time through, I want you to switch roles. Imagine you are the other speaker, and try predicting their lines just slightly before you hear them, based purely on the context and the natural flow of the conversation. This trains a completely different mental muscle, because instead of just recognizing language, you're starting to anticipate it, which is honestly one of the biggest markers of true listening fluency. Once you've picked that one conversation, I want you to go back and listen to it again, this time without any explanation, just the raw conversation, and see how much more you understand now that we've broken apart all the vocabulary together. I promise you, it will sound completely different the second time around. And here's something else I want you to try, something that honestly changed my own language learning journey years ago. Take one phrase from today's episode, any phrase that stood out to you, whether it was, "Can I get?" or "Take a left," or "I'd be down for that," and use it today, in a real sentence, even if you're just talking to yourself, even if you're just writing it in a notebook. Language doesn't become yours just because you heard it. It becomes yours when you actually use it, when your own mouth and your own mind produce it in a real, meaningful context. So don't let today's episode just be something you listen to. Let it be something you actually put into practice. I also want to remind you that struggling with listening comprehension does not mean you're bad at English. It means you're human, and it means your brain is still building the specific neural pathways needed to process a language that, for most of you, isn't your first one. Every single native speaker you've ever struggled to understand went through years, literally years, of exposure before their brain automatically processed connected speech, slang, and fast talking without conscious effort. You are exactly where you need to be in your journey. And every episode, like this one, every single conversation you expose yourself to, whether it's here on English in Fluency, in movies, in podcasts, or in real-life conversations, is quite literally rewiring your brain to get better and better at this. Before I let you go today, I want to quickly recap the 9 settings we covered, because repetition really is the mother of learning when it comes to language acquisition. We covered ordering at a coffee shop, checking into a hotel, asking a stranger for directions on the street, making small talk before a job interview, describing symptoms at a doctor's office, catching up casually with a friend about weekend plans, ordering dinner at a restaurant, calling customer service about an internet outage, and navigating a flight delay at the airport. 9 incredibly common, incredibly useful, real-world situations, each with its own specific vocabulary, its own rhythm, and its own level of formality. From the relaxed slang between friends to the more careful, professional tone of a job interview or a customer service call. If today's episode helped you, and I really hope it did, I would love for you to come back for our next listening challenge here on English in Fluency, where we're going to move up just slightly and tackle some B1+ and early B2 conversations, including a conversation between co-workers disagreeing politely about a project, a parent talking to a child's teacher at a school meeting, and a group of friends planning a surprise party over text and voice messages. Each of these comes with its own unique vocabulary and its own unique challenges, and honestly, the more of these you practice, the more confident you're going to feel navigating real English conversations wherever in the world you happen to be. I also want to take a moment to talk about something a lot of learners overlook, which is the emotional side of listening comprehension. When you don't understand something in a conversation, especially in a real live situation, it's incredibly common to feel a little wave of anxiety, maybe even a little bit of embarrassment, and that emotional reaction can actually make it even harder to focus on the words that come next. Your brain gets stuck in a kind of panic loop, and instead of listening, it's busy worrying about not understanding. One of the most powerful things you can do, honestly, is to simply accept, ahead of time, that you will not understand everything, every single time, and that this is completely normal. Even for advanced learners, even for people who have been studying English for years. Giving yourself that permission in advance takes so much pressure off, and, ironically, it usually helps you understand more, not less, because your brain is finally free to actually focus on the language instead of the fear. Another thing I want to mention is the difference between active listening and passive listening, because both have their place in your learning journey, but they serve very different purposes. Passive listening is what you're doing when you have an English podcast playing in the background while you're cooking dinner, or doing chores around the house, or driving to work. It's valuable because it exposes your ear to the rhythm, the music, and the general sound of the language, even when you're not actively focused on every word. Active listening, on the other hand, is exactly what we did together today. Sitting down, fully focused, listening carefully, pausing, breaking apart phrases, and repeating them out loud. Both types of listening matter, but if you only ever do passive listening, your comprehension tends to plateau, and if you only ever do active listening, you might burn out because it takes so much mental energy. The sweet spot, honestly, is a healthy mix of both. Active practice sessions like this one a few times a week, combined with plenty of passive, relaxed exposure throughout your day. I also want to personally invite you, if you haven't already, to go back and listen to this episode a second time, maybe tomorrow, or maybe later this week. Repetition, genuinely, is one of the most powerful tools in language learning, and you will be amazed at how much more you catch the second time through. Once your brain already has some familiarity with the vocabulary and the flow of each conversation. One last thing before we close out, and honestly, this might be the most important part of the entire episode. I want to talk about consistency, because so many learners treat listening practice like a single event, something you do once, check off a list, and move on from, when really, listening comprehension is built the exact same way. Physical strength is built at the gym, through small, repeated efforts over time, not through one enormous, exhausting session followed by weeks of nothing. If you only ever do one intense listening challenge like this one every few months, your progress is going to feel slow, frustrating, and honestly a little random. But if you can commit to even 10 or 15 minutes of focused English listening most days of the week, whether that's an episode of this podcast, a short video, or a real conversation with someone, you're going to be absolutely amazed at how quickly your comprehension improves, often within just a matter of weeks. If you're listening to this on your commute, or while you're cooking, or while you're out on a walk, I want you to try one small experiment this week. Pick just one of the 9 conversations we covered today, whichever one felt the most useful to your own life, and listen to it once a day for the next 5 days, without looking at any notes or transcripts. I promise you, by day 3 or 4, you'll start noticing details you completely missed on day 1. Little words, little sounds, tiny bits of intonation, and that noticing is genuinely the sound of your listening comprehension getting stronger in real time. I also want to encourage you to keep a small listening journal, nothing fancy, just a simple notebook or a notes app on your phone, where you jot down new phrases you hear, things that confused you, or moments where you were proud of yourself for understanding something quickly. Looking back at that journal every few weeks is honestly one of the most motivating things you can do, because it's so easy to forget how far you've come when you're only ever focused on how far you still have to go. Seeing, in your own handwriting or your own typing, that you once struggled with a phrase you now understand instantly, that's real, tangible proof of your progress, and that kind of proof matters, especially on the harder, more discouraging days of learning a new language. And finally, be patient with yourself. Genuinely, truly patient. Listening comprehension is, without a doubt, one of the slowest skills to develop in language learning, slower than reading, often slower even than speaking, because it depends so heavily on countless hours of exposure to natural, fast, unpredictable speech. There is no shortcut, that skips this exposure. There is no trick that replaces time and consistent practice. But the good news, the genuinely wonderful news, is that this skill does come steadily, reliably, to every single learner who keeps showing up, keeps listening, and keeps giving their brain the chance to adapt. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and for trusting English in Fluency to be part of your language learning journey. Learning a new language, especially something as nuanced and fast-moving as spoken English, takes real courage, real patience, and honestly, real persistence. And the fact that you showed up today, that you listened all the way through this entire challenge, tells me everything I need to know about how committed you are to your own growth. And if you ever find yourself doubting your own progress, doubting whether any of this is actually working, I want you to remember this single episode. Remember that today you sat through 9 full, real, natural English conversations, and by the end of it, phrases that might have sounded like a blur just an hour ago now have clear, specific meaning to you. That is not a small thing. That is real, measurable, honest progress. And it happened in a single episode, which means imagine, truly imagine, where your listening skills will be after a month of this, after a year of this, after you've given yourself the same patient, consistent practice you gave yourself today. Until next time, keep listening, keep repeating, and keep believing in your own progress, because trust me, it is happening, even on the days it doesn't feel like it. This has been Alex, and this is English in Fluency, the podcast where we turn confusing, fast, real-world English into something you can actually understand. One conversation at a time. If today's challenge pushed you, stretched you, or even just made you smile when you realized you understood more than you expected, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.